Hello, everyone. Today we're looking at Megaman Legends. I really like this game. Uh, at least in some qualities. It's not perfect. It's definitely rough in some areas because it is, I think, the first Mega Man game that is in 3D. But I still really enjoyed certain aspects of this game more than others. This is a game that also just feels very surreal, I think, mainly because it basically, I'm not sure if it's technically using cell shading, but the art style and the aesthetic in Mega Man Legends is probably one of my favorite looking games ever. And it's so interesting that I was considering playing Mega Man Legends 2 right after I beat this one, and they completely lost the aesthetic and the look of the game, and that really put a hamper on me wanting to play this. um, I guess an extension from the aesthetic itself, it doesn't feel aged at all because of it. It feels almost modern. And my brother made a comment that it looked like I was playing one of those PlayStation D-Make games where they were trying to make it look like an old game, but with updated graphics. No, this is the original. And another thing I really enjoy about this game is how, I guess, the animation, the art style, and the dialogue all kind of intersect to make a very unique, fun experience. And what I mean by that is just the characters are very animated, and they kind of have this. They have like a low or a low frame rate for how their expressions change, and it actually reminds me a lot of Ocarina of Time, where Link's eyes, they wouldn't fully close with smooth motion, but they would kind of snap shut, and they would kind of have this. I don't want to say jankiness to them, but they have this very almost rapid or jittery kind of uh, energy to them because it's not smooth, it's not perfect, it's a very imperfect, jittery mess, and kind of like a small version or a simplified version of what a human or a person looks like. And just the aesthetic in Legends is just so great. Like, it's really fun. And what also contrasts it is the characters are really fun. And what also, uh, I guess, increases it is that the voice acting is perfect. It is just absolutely wonderful how they do the voices, and they feel so animated. And this to me feels like the only anime game that actually exists. If you play any other anime game like Eternal Sonata or Tales, any of the Tales of games, they definitely have anime cutscenes, but the actual gameplay itself is kind of 3D-ish, obviously. And this is obviously 3D as well, but there's no visual aesthetic that makes me feel, oh yeah, this is like an anime video game. Mega Man Legends is literally the only one that has used this aesthetic that I know of. I'm sure there's some other game, but you could probably count on your hand how many games actually use this aesthetic, and it just looks really good and really modern, and it's really fun. The characters are super expressive, not only in their voice acting, their expressions, and there's just something about the art style here. I mean, just saying it's just anime isn't quite grasping what it is. But it's just so simplistic, colorful, cute, and there's something really special about it. Especially when you look at the sequel, Mega Man Legends 2, they completely just get it messed up and get it wrong. And here they just nail it. And it's almost inconceivable to me that no one has tried to recreate this kind of art style. It's the only game, and it looks fantastic, and no one's ever done it. I'm sure there's some indie developers who are busy at work doing that right now. I can only think of the only other game similar to this might be something like Wind Waker, but Wind Waker is very smooth, and even the way the characters are moving, they're kind of jumping or like, stuttering. They look like they're moving at a very low frame rate, which gives them a lot more ability to have over animated movements and expressions because it looks already kind of unrealistic, so it meshes with that overall style. Again, the voices for Mega Man, Roll, Tron Bon are absolutely fantastic. And so I think that's one of the main things that I think a lot of people are going to praise this game for, or that I certainly do, is simply based on aesthetics. It is fantastic. And presentation. Now, that's kind of the high point of the game. Now we have to get into the not so high points of this game. That brings it from a game that would be great to a game that's just kind of good and kind of okay and well rounded, but still could have been a lot better. So I guess traditionally, I really don't like Mega Man games. I really don't enjoy, I don't know, Mega Man's jump. I know it's a weird thing to complain about, but his basic movement is something I'm not a fan of. And the Mega Man games are also very difficult usually. And when I say games, I played a few on emulator of the kind of Game Boy ones. I just didn't care for those. Mega Man X, of course, I've played, and even that game, I just thought this is really hard, and I'm not having a lot of fun. This game, I would have to say, is much easier than those other games, and again, it's much more forgiving, I would say. And there are just certain structures in a 3D game that they just miss the ball on some very strange things that should be obvious. For example, the main shop in the game, the junk shop, where you buy all of your health upgrades, power upgrades, etc. You have to do a bunch of kind of like side quests for them in the beginning, but the story moves at a pretty decent pace, so I kind of forgot about it, and I didn't really think I could buy anything from them because they were a story thing where I had to buy used parts for the ship and whatever, and I didn't realize that I could actually go to them and buy things from them until much later in the game. And I came back there and I realized, so I was playing most of the game with like the starting health and everything else, and so I came back to them later and I realized, oh wait, I can actually increase my health and stuff by a lot. And so suddenly the game became very easy. So kind of the way they represented or presented that opening store, that's a kind of a vital part of the game, isn't communicated very well. Another aspect is that also kind of bothered me is, while the music is serviceable, it's nothing amazing, there were just some areas that didn't have any music, or the music was just very much in the background, and it felt very odd and awkward that certain areas just, it felt very odd that there were just no music in certain areas. And I thought, oh, is the rest of the game going to be like this? And it's like, no, the other areas have quite a lot of music. And it's funny that the dungeons in the game, they sound kind of like Metroid, like Super Metroid, and that they're kind of creepy and weird and whatever, and I guess that's fine. Another thing that I think held this game back is just the fact that dungeons and the areas underground, they are pretty basic. Like, it's a dungeon crawler, more or less. Everything is the same kind of Minecraft block layout with, this one's blue and this one's brown now, so it's kind of like whatever. And I guess touching on other aspects of the actual gameplay, it's not bad, but this game, I guess, came out before the analog stick, so you're gonna have to be using the D-pad to move. And fortunately, you can change the default controls, which I did, where I think initially D-pad controls all movement, while L1 and R1 control camera. And I mean, I'll just speak directly that I really hated that, and it does allow you to change it. It's unfortunate it's not the default service, but I much prefer that you can switch it to tank controls, which ironically might work much better, where if I turn left and right, that'll turn the camera while Mega Man moves forward and backwards, and then L1 and R1 control Mega Man strafing, which feel much more genuine to use. And for a lot of enemies and bosses, you're just strafing and shooting anyway, which feels much more natural. I also think I changed the first person controls from inverted to normal. But besides that, I didn't have to change anything else about the game. But I'm glad they had those features because playing the default controls of this game, I don't think I could have done it. Honestly, it was very painful. And honestly, D-pad movement and constant D-pad usage really is not good for your fingers. I don't know how else to say this. I'm really looking at you, Turok. I love you, Turok, but I remember there was one point I was playing it for like a week or so, just really grinding it out, and I lost kind of feeling in my left thumb. It was it was not good. Yeah, D-pad is really not meant for movement, and I guess that's basically every classic game from NES to SNES, really. So uh, I guess it depends. I mean, the N64 D-pad was pretty rough, but in any case. But yeah, a lot of it is strafing and shooting. You're pressing square to shoot. You're pressing circle to interact with things. You pressing X to jump. Pretty basic stuff. You also have like a bunch of special weapons which you get throughout the game that increase your jump capability. Again, another weird miscommunication is that you get the jump capability, but it doesn't tell you you have to go to the special items menu and then actually equip that item to actually activate it. Um, Aside from that, enemy variety is pretty decent. A lot of things are just kind of damage sponges, but not really in a bad way. It's kind of you just keep blasting at them until they explode. Another fun thing, I guess I'm thinking of Doom Eternal here, honestly, that when you destroy a lot of the enemies, they will drop certain things, these crystals, these things called refractor shards, and they act as the in-game currency, which is called zenny. And I just absolutely love that they just combined the words zen and money to make zenny. I mean, the absolute worst I think offender is Kingdom Hearts Money, MUNY or something. Just sounds very like stupidly baby talk. But zenny, I think I know it amuses me every time I see zenny. I don't know why. Um, and of course you also have besides your main blaster, you can buy components to upgrade its rate of fire, its energy, which means the consistency of the blast, its attack, range, etc. Range is really interesting because again, there are certain scenarios where you really with default range, your blaster might only go 3 or 4 meters, and once you upgrade it, it can go all the way across the map. So it feels really good. Your sub weapons are a combination of things you find in dungeons, and you can basically upgrade them using Zenny. And so you're going to use your Zenny at the shop or to upgrade your sub weapons. And your sub weapons, of course, are going to be doing the most damage. So there are things like mines, drills, rocket launchers, the sword, which is my absolute favorite. The laser sword is really really cool. Definitely reminds me of Zero. Um, but most of the game you're just strafing and shooting with your blaster. And of course, your sub weapon has limited ammo, so you have to be careful. There's an item to refill it, and you can refill it at every save point. And so throughout the game, you're going to be talking to Data and Roll. And so Roll is kind of your R&D. She takes care of all of the weapon upgrades, changing weapons, getting new weapons. I think it's very funny and kind of cute how in order to get certain sub weapons, you just need to scavenge for certain items in the dungeons in the underground section, and sometimes you'll just combine kind of household items to make a sub weapon. Like I think the sword was like something like a pen light and a fake toy sword or something, but you combine these, and Roll is able to make you an actual laser sword, which is cool. And then you have Data, and Data is my absolute favorite. I don't know how I've never seen a gif of this monkey, but as soon as I saw this cute little monkey dancing, asking me if I want to save, I'm like, yes. Data's got to be one of the cutest characters I think I've ever seen in a game. But what I also love is that the ending to this game, not to spoil it, is kind of up there with the Shiba Inu Silent Hill 2 ending, where the monkey, basically Data, I won't say how, but he basically comes in and saves the day. And he's actually the all-powerful, all-knowing monkey. You had no idea. And so Data is kind of interesting in that he basically saves your Data, and he says, well, as he's been with you for a long time, longer than you remember. So here's another thing that I'll segment into is the story. This story is not bad, but it feels very kind of half baked in the sense that they do this huge twist at the end of the game that feels like it would be more appropriate to be in the middle of the game, where you only figure out at the end of the game that Mega Man apparently has amnesia. And there's a bunch of stuff he hasn't remembered yet. And Data's like, oh, I'm going to tell you soon, which means in the sequel. So and then they bring out all this ancient technology stuff. Well, in the beginning they kind of say, again, very similar to Wind Waker, and I got very much Wind Waker and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door vibes from this, where the world's been flooded. There is this ancient technology underground, and there's these people called diggers who go down, digging for them, and they are assisted by spotters, which is Roll. And they basically find this ancient technology, these crystals, which power all of their current technology. And so what essentially happens is that this ancient civilization and its purpose are never really talked about until like literally the end of the game. And most of the story is just Mega Man they crash land on this island, and Mega Man is basically searching for a way to power their ship to get off the island. But then there's a legend about a treasure on the island, deep, deep down inside, which is also the reason for the destruction of the whole world and the flood. So it's a very much like the treasure slash demon pursuit story. Meanwhile, there's a rival gang of pirates called the Bonds, Tron, Bon, and Diesel, who are basically pursuing you and become your rivals over the course of the game. And basically their shenanigans take up 90% of the story, and you don't get anything else until the very end. So that's kind of the issue with the story. It's not really there. Aside from that, I found that the world map was relatively small, and I thought, oh, we're not going to spend all this time on this one map, are we? But they have events that change and spawn in new dungeons. And actually, I want to talk about one of my favorite aspects of this game is that, and this is just so cool to me, is that basically you have the overworld, which is a bunch of forests and the town and the city and whatever. But you also have the underground. And in the underground, it's kind of like a series of, kind of like a challenge area where, of course, you can fight other robots and things like that. And then there are, of course, specific areas where you go down into dungeons. And you have a boss of that dungeon that gets a crystal. I think there are 3 crystals that you get, and then you can finally fight the final segment. What's really, really, really cool, though, is once you get certain upgrades, like a jump ability and a drill to open up certain walls, it's all interconnected. You can go through the entire underground, through pretty much every dungeon. And the starting area where you're just looking for loot is actually connected to all the other loot areas and all the other dungeons. I just thought, that's so cool. I don't know if there's a word for that, like discovery or exploration, but I really appreciate it in games like Dark Souls, where you go through this whole Undead Burg, this like winding, chasm-y area, and suddenly there's an elevator that brings you back up to the Firelink Shrine, and it just, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I don't know what it is, but I love having that feeling of having this sense of disorientation, of opportunistic, activities that actually end up linking and cohesing into a singular total picture and whole. The only, I think, thing that would make it better is that while if you click select in the overworld, it'll show you the whole map of where you are with the dot on it. In the underworld, it'll show you that section of the map. I would love to have an overall map of the entire underworld, but also having it later so it doesn't spoil the fact everything is actually interconnected. And of course, this is one of those maps where as you walk around, it fills out and kind of blocks sort of thing. And so it was kind of fun and frustrating to make sure you kind of get 100% of the whole map, and it retains that later, so you don't have to do it over again. In terms of bosses, the bosses are very hit and miss. Some bosses are very fun, very straightforward. Some bosses, for example, when you first fight Teasel, you are kind of bombarded with, how would I call this? Maybe difficulty spikes or something. Essentially, what occurs is that he's in this giant tank, and you have to take out the treads, and then you have to go onto this platform without getting shot down, and you have to jump from the platform onto his tank thing, and then shoot the entrance. And so you'll fail multiple times in doing that process because you have to figure out, okay, I have to jump here. Oh, wait, if I do this, I have iframe, so I don't get hit by that blaster, etc., etc. And you keep going through that process, and all the while you're not doing any damage to the tank. So until you finally get to that point where you're standing on the platform and you can throw like bombs into his little door frame, then all of his health disappears. So it's a lot of bosses are like figuring out one weird trick, or just something you run around and shoot, which is again fine. I also feel that there's a pretty good variety of sub weapons. It's just that by the end of the game, I even grinded for like an hour just on the highest, crystal dropping enemies, and I still did not have enough points to fully upgrade every weapon. There was like one weapon left that I actually had even after I did more grinding. So I don't know, it's definitely something that it takes a lot of time to fully upgrade everything if you want to go that route. I kind of upgraded the weapons I wanted and said, okay, I'm good enough. There's no more challenge in the game, so I don't have to upgrade anything else. Again, coming back to the whole shop fiasco, the biggest thing in the shop is that there's a flak jacket that costs only 5,000, or like it was something minuscule, like 10,000, diamonds or points or whatever, and it reduces your damage by a quarter. That's pretty massive, and I just didn't know about it until I came back to the town much later after a bunch of bosses. But in any case, you don't really need it. I think it's a pretty decent, fun game. There's also a weird mechanic that they actually explain at the end of the game where if you beat the game without turning the power off, it unlocks hard mode. So if you just reload your previous save, beat the final boss, then you can start a game on hard mode or enable hard mode. I'm actually not super clear on that. But yeah, the game is really fun. It's, again, the control scheme could be better, the story could be better, the pacing is pretty decent, and again, the music could be better. Again, everything else though is such a good starting point that if they just added or fixed those other components, this would be a fantastic game. This would be one of the best games of all time. But here, just kind of it's a fun, it's decent enough, but it's almost like a novelty. Simply because of the art style, the voice acting, the animations, and just the fact it's 3D Mega Man. In terms of the future of the series, again, I look at Legends 2, and it just they lost the art style, and I'm not really interested in a more mechanically competent or complex game. I mean somewhat, but like the mechanics here were decent enough. I think they just need to improve other things that I mentioned, like music and whatnot. But overall, I'm really not interested in a more mechanically better Mega Man game. So again, it's maybe the mechanics or whatever, or the control scheme. Really, I just want to use the analog stick. That's what I'm trying to say in this context. But yeah, overall, the 2 is not something I'm gonna play. If you're gonna get rid of the art and aesthetics, that's like the soul of the game. That's the heart of it, and it's really terrible that they did that. With Legends 3, apparently Capcom said, "Oh, you guys aren't interested. We're going to just not do it," and essentially just canceled the project, unfortunately, which is pretty sad, pretty bad. But yeah, I think this game and this style has a lot of potential. It was a lot of fun to play. I love how the text scrolls. I guess the one weird thing about it is that this is a pet peeve, is that triangle was the cancel and skip button, which just always feels weird to me. But overall, This game reminds me a lot of Wind Waker, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, and also Pokemon of all things, specifically like the early Pokemon Red. Just the way the towns are set up, kind of like it feels like you're in like Pallet Town. I don't know. It feels like the same kind of vibe or same kind of energy. And again, you have these goofy villains that are kind of like Team Rocket that are always messing up, trying to, steal Mega Man's treasures and whatnot. And a lot of it is again shenanigans. Again, one really cool thing, I think one of the gold star moments of this game in terms of scalability is the final fight with the Bonds, where they get in this giant mech and they are trashing the city. And they're literally destroying the city objects. They are destroying the buildings. If you're hiding behind them and they're taking a bunch of cannon fire, they will get destroyed. And it leads to, again, I had no idea that miscommunication. I had no idea this was a thing, but I went to the mayor in the late game, and apparently you can donate money to repair all those buildings, except for the ones in the industrial district. So if you were walking around the town, you thought, "Oh, this is so sad that if I had played that boss fight differently, we would still have all these houses again." You can actually revive them just through this, not a mini game, but through this other thing that the mayor does. But that fight with the giant mech, it just the scale of the destruction and what was possible in the game, it just felt really, really cool and really fun to just fight this giant thing in the city. It was one of those wow moments that, oh, I didn't know this was possible. That, okay, sure, I'm fighting a giant boss, but it's also destroying everything around me. It's really, really cool. I guess it reminds me a bit of Psychonauts, where I think in both those games you have one level where you become like a super giant guy, and I don't know, there's always just so much fun. There's just this level of destruction. Of course, something else I should probably mention are there are actually a few mini games in here. And I remember in that same section, I don't know, I found it very entertaining or cute that there's this girl standing inside this one gaming studio where apparently she says she's learning how to make games, cool games like Resident Evil. It's like, all right, Capcom. There's also there's also a scene where Mega Man goes into like a little novelty store and he finds his own game. He says, "Oh, Mega Man Legends. This is what everyone's talking about." It's also very entertaining to go into the CD store and to see what people are listening to. There's one construction worker who's like self-conscious that he likes the Spice Girls. I, I, I don't know if that's like a mistranslation or the official thing they were going for, but I don't know. I just really like the towns and the areas in this game. It also feels very Nintendo friendly. It just from the bright colors and everything. It feels very whimsical without forcing it, I guess is a way to say it. But in that same area, there were some mini games where you have to do, you have to throw balls at a dog, which is whatever. It's kind of annoying. There's another one where you are, oh, what is it? You're shooting balloons, and they play the Blue Danube Waltz, from 2001, which I just thought, okay, interesting choice of music. There's also the last one, which is the racing one, which I actually really, really enjoyed. And it's very unusual for me to, point out a mini game in the main game of anything. But the racing mechanic feels really good. And once I got the hang of what to do for each course, it got really addictive. And like I to the extent where I feel like Mega Man Legends Racing could be a proper spin-off. Like if you just took that racing mechanic and put it in another game, it would feel really, really fun. Overall, they just did a really good job. And what it is eventually you get these things called the jet boots, and those were items in Mega Man X and previous Mega Man games that allowed you to like kind of dash or whatever. And in this game, what they do is you hold down circle and you get into a stance, and then suddenly you just start moving with forward momentum. And as you turn left and right, you have these cool sparks flying out of the back of your shoes. It just feels really cool. They're basically wheelies, but powered by Mega Man technology. And the courses, I thought at first, oh, they looked way too hard. But then I just figured out certain things. Like I didn't realize even though you're going forward automatically, if you push forward, you actually go just a little bit faster. That gives you a little bit speed on those last few seconds. And for the final course, I didn't realize, yes, okay, you can turn using the D-pad, but if you also press L1 and R1, you also strafe. And that added a whole new dimension of like, oh, I can do these sharp turns. I'm just saying I got really into Mega Man racing, of all things. I didn't think it would be as fun as it is, but it was really kind of addicting. And one aspect of the game that I would kind of love to see come back, it's kind of like how I really more or less dislike every single Quake game ever made, but the movement mechanic and the basis for movement is one of my favorite mechanics, and just how it's found in every other game from Half-Life to Counter-Strike and so on. Yeah, so that's one thing I wanted to highlight. But I think at this point I've exhausted most everything I want to talk about this game. I think still it's kind of like a weird must play just because it's so unique. There's so many interesting concepts here that just if they gave it more time or they did a remake of it, it would be really, really cool. And just aesthetically, it looks so nice. It's also funny that you can get the helmet in this game, and if you equip it, it just ruins the aesthetic of Mega Man. And I know that's his traditional look, but the goofy hair and the eyes, they just work together so well aesthetically in this game that I played most of the game without the helmet on. But it is there for an option, I guess. Anyway, I don't know, this game is so special to me because there's nothing quite like this, and even for the same series, yes, I guess they still make Mega Man games. But they still 2D, and Legends is just a weird creation onto itself, and I just wish there was more of it, I guess, or inspired to some degree. I don't know. I think I'm just kind of going off in circles, but I just love the way the characters talk, the way they react, the way they're animated. It's just nothing is quite like it, and it was just such a special, cool looking thing. And even today, the graphics essentially hold up. They look timeless, essentially, and they have this fun, cartoony vibe that you just don't see in other games. But yeah, I think that's more or less what I wanted to say. Who knows if we get another Legends game? I would be super hype. I just want to use control sticks, a more modern control scheme. I would be so down. I'd be so down for a Mega Man Legends 3 or 4 or whatever, or remake even. Anyway, guys, that's all I want to say about Mega Man Legends. Great game. I'll see you guys later. Bye.